If you wanna be bright-minded, there's just one place to go. When you're stuck at home and the time is ticking slow. Monday through Friday, live with Miley on my Instagram show. On my Instagram show. Stay lit, everybody.
And we're back to Bright Minded Live with Miley. Today is a very special episode with very special guests. After we make some food with Antoni that will be customized to consider the times we're in, but if there are ingredients you lack at home right now, do not worry. Just get out your notebook, take down the recipe, and I'll also ask Antoni for modifications and to simplify what we may be missing for this No Good Cook also. Right after Antoni, there will be a songwriting camp with Ronson, Grammy and Oscar-winning producer, writer, musician, DJ, and a BFF of mine and collaborator. Some more of my BFFs include Ryan Tedder, songwriter, Grammy Award winner, and lead singer of One Republic. And then a true queen in the songwriting community, Ilsey, who's written songs for Shawn Mendes, Camila Cabello, Beyonce, #1 song for Panic at the Disco, LA Goulding, and we wrote Nothing Breaks Like a Heart together with Mark. So if you have ambitions of being a songwriter, you should definitely take notes. You are literally going to be learning from the very best of the best. So songwriting comes from the heart. It isn't a skill. Necessarily, it's not something that you learn. It's a gift that you're given. But like anything, there is always an opportunity to do and be better, to grow, to learn. There hasn't been a time that I have been in the studio with these three that I haven't taken home something to ponder. They always make me want to be better. They challenge my lyrics, Ilsey, my melodies, Ryan Tedder, and my entire body of work to make sure I put the most incredible, cohesive album and project together possible, Mark Ronson. So songwriting is about feeling, and then relief, to write down your problems, your worries, your heartbreak, your happiness, your joy, your love, and then releasing it for others to relate to. It's been an honor to work beside these three, and my gift to you is an hour to do the same. So I am very excited. Before we get started, if you want a hoodie as cool as mine, you can go to TWLOHA. That stands for To Write Love on Her Arms. So TWLOHA.com, To Write Love on Her Arms, which is a non-profit movement dedicated to presenting hope and finding help for people struggling with depression, addiction, self-injury, and suicide. They invest directly into treatment and to recovery. So I'm excited to be wearing this shirt and showing my love for To Write Love today. With COVID-19 causing a lot of anxiety and stress, it's a great time to support a cause like To Write Love on Her Arms, which I have been supporting for probably the last 15 years. Jamie is a great friend of mine, the founder, and so go to their website to learn more about how you can get involved and also get a badass hoodie. Their shirt sales allow their team to continue to bring a mix of resources. Their team continues to respond to individual messages that come in. They work to connect people to professional help and at times to help fund that help as well. So get your merch now, super cool merch from super cool cause To Write Love on Her Arms. So make sure you get involved now. All right, so I want to get started with Antoni, so I'm going to invite Antoni right now to Bright Minded Live with Miley. Hope this shit works. Here we go.
It works!
Yes, we're back on. Who are you talking to down there?
This is our little foster Neon. She's a Beagle Pit mix.
Oh my God.
Because I decided, with COVID and everything, why not make life even more complicated and take in a foster during this crazy time?
I just did a very similar thing, except I am, a full-on commitment type gal. So I went straight into adoption.
Oh my gosh.
This is my buddy. Hi, Neon.
She's so good. It's Austin Pets Alive, and I was worried because I heard that they may be closing during this whole pandemic, and then all these fosters were going to be left there. So I decided I'm here in Austin, might as well make the best of it, and so I'm trying to teach her some good things.
I love that. And you're going to do the same thing for us today, which I'm really, really excited about.
Yeah, I'm really pumped.
I wanted you know, to kind of to guide me. Usually, you know, talk show is kind of in my wheelhouse because I love to talk, but I know nothing really about cooking beyond pouring almond milk onto my Cocoa Crisps.
Okay.
So you can totally guide. I wanted to start with, you know, it's really important that we don't waste right now. So how do we continue to make foods that we love? Because breakfast is such a part of our schedule and our routine. I mean, even if it's just a banana and peanut butter, this is our ritual. This is our schedule. So what do we do when we kind of, it's interesting because we have no schedule, you know, with staying inside. So how do we create a schedule? And is food a big part of that, of having a routine so you can have some normalcy?
Of course. I mean, you know, selfishly for this, I started, I have a little mini series on Insta called Quarai, where I'm basically cooking with literally whatever I have. I'm not in my own apartment. I'm not in New York. I don't have all my spices and all the things that I'm usually used to having. And just making do with the best with what we've got, basically. That's really all it's been. It's adaptability, right?
I love that. And also, I mean, a lot of people were, you know, traveling in the time where all this happened. So I'm sure you're not the only one that is now stuck in a place that you don't really call home.
Right.
I know I usually have, like, one of my best friends is Indian and he makes the most badass Indian food.
Yeah.
And he made me like a little sweetheart, made me a little like shaker full of just masala so I could make it whenever because he's not here to always help me.
Oh, put that on your eggs. It's so good.
That's what I've been doing it on, like tofu. I've been putting on I literally put it on everything. I'll put it on pizza. I put it on everything. I wanted to start my own food truck at one time called Indian Pizza because they're my two favorite things. And I'm like, why would you not put Indian food? Because it's basically a lot of tomato-based things.
Yep.
For those of us who are better at one skill set in the kitchen and we don't have our friends to balance that out, like what's something super simple that we can make in the morning to keep that routine and also not waste? Do you have any ideas?
I love eggs. They're so good for you. They have omega-3s. They're packed with protein. They're cheap. Sometimes they're super readily available. Sometimes they're not. I went to the grocery store this week. Little note, FDA suggesting that we only go once a week. And I'm going to take a little segue. This is my ADD coming in, but I'll come right back to it. I promise.
Oh, that's perfect.
We shouldn't be buying more food than we need for 1 week. I know everyone is in such a panic. They're stocking up and getting like as many canned beans or chickpeas or whatever it is that they can grab. But there's tons of produce that's still available there. We have to support our farmers, small businesses, whenever it's safe, of course. So just know when you're like grocery shopping to like, don't just go for like the non-perishables.
I thought it was really kind of funny the other day. I did go to, you know, go and get my weekly meals and, you know, I kept it to a minimum and I tried to think of what can I use that I can use in a lot of different things that could kind of be breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So what can I use? And then this woman was behind me at the grocery store. Hopefully she doesn't watch my Insta Live. She's behind me at the grocery store and she had like 15,000 freaking cans of beans or whatever. And I was like, wow, you know, you're really stocking up. And she's like, well, as a vegetarian in this crisis, there's really no options for me. This is all I can eat. And I'm like, most things we keep in our pantry are honestly vegetarian. And there's actually a lot of vegetarian options. You know, you're about to show a vegetarian, not vegan, but a vegetarian option. And so it was just funny to me that in this crisis, the idea came into someone's head that it's going to be so much more difficult because I'm vegetarian, which really isn't the case. I think all of us can find things that we still enjoy, that we love, and that we also don't need to be hoarding food so others don't have as many options.
Totally. Have you heard of the whole WIC label, the WIC?
No.
So WIC is basically reserved for people who get government assistance when they're buying a lot of food.
Right.
And so people are buying off all those items, and then people who have government assistance can't buy those products. So make sure when you're at the grocery store, look for the label WIC. If you can't, if that's all that you can afford, I completely understand, but be cognizant of the fact that there are other people out there who really need this. And another little segue, that's why Feeding America is so important. I know you've been a massive help to them as well. And they're basically working with over 200 food banks and getting food to people who need it, from the elderly, students who are not in school and getting their meals that they usually do, and families who really need it.
Yeah,
so,
my family is from Kentucky. They're from the like Appalachian Mountains, and most of the kids there, that is their, you know, their breakfast and lunch. At least sometimes they don't even have dinner once they go home, and they go to school every day. That's what's going to be fed. And without going to school, they're going to be missing meals. So Feeding America is really important. And it's also amazing how much you can do with such a little donation. So
absolutely,
what you donate, if you donate, I believe it's like $1, 10 meals. I mean, whatever
yep.
you donate is amazing. So
yep.
we touched on grocery shopping, not buying in bulk. That was a question that I had for you. And so what's something if you want to not waste, which is so important always, not just during a pandemic, but we throw out so much food. And I love watching like Instagram chefs use like the night before leftovers. Like, so could you kind of explain a way that you could turn dinner into breakfast, breakfast into dinner?
Yeah, I mean, so that's a perfect segue for what I'm going to be making for you virtually. Not that you're going to be able to try it. But,
I know.
So I think, you know, my life motto is taking everything a day at a time. That's how I keep things simple for myself, and especially in these times with my food as well. Last night I got takeout because we have to support small businesses as well when we can. From one of my favorite Tex-Mex places here. And I have some leftover beans. I have a couple of corn tortillas that I'm heating up with a bit of water. When they get dry, you put them on a pan. And eggs. Eggs are back. So I'm actually going to show how to make. Do you eat eggs?
I used to, but I know how delicious that they are. And I know that watching will eat eggs. So I'm so excited.
Pretend that it's like a food scramble.
Well, I do this with like this chana masala breakfast that I've been making. So I pretty much am on like an Indian food diet right now.
Okay, awesome. There are much worse diets to be on. Indian food is definitely the way to go. So I've been like nerding out a little bit on like how to make things better because I have so much more time and I'm cooped up at home. So basically, if you take eggs, scrambled eggs, my new little hack is that I've learned, if you add just a couple of teaspoons of water, 1 teaspoon for every 2 eggs, it thins it out a little bit and it makes them really nice and creamy. So I basically whisk them up. I got a pan here that's already hot on like medium heat. You can use olive oil, butter, plant butter, ghee, coconut oil, literally whatever you have.
Amazing.
And then you just plop them right in. This whole thing takes like 3 minutes to make. It couldn't be easier. And I don't salt my eggs until the end because then they kind of get like they get a little weird texture. And I love my eggs to be creamy.
Yeah.
And then with a little spatula, you just start mixing it around and it's already starting to curdle. So now, I bought some tomatoes the other day because I had dreams of making like a really nice caprese salad, but I didn't find buffalo mozzarella. So I'm making do with what I got. So I cut up some little baby tomatoes, a bit of onion. I had a jalapeno that was left over from like a Thai peanut sauce that I made with like coconut flakes because I didn't have coconut milk. So I threw in the jalapeno in there, a little bit of lime juice, a little bit of salt at the end. You don't want to add your salt too early with your tomatoes because then all the juices kind of pour out and it becomes like a sauce. So you want them to stay nice and thick. And so I have a nice little fresh pico.
I've been doing everything wrong, officially.
What are you doing wrong?
I just pour in salt the whole freaking time because I'm country.
I'm a salt freak.
I
love salt.
Nasty. More salt. Ooh, this tastes creepy. More salt. I'll do salt in the freaking cookies, salt in the cake, salt in the...
salt on a chocolate chip cookie is like the greatest thing ever.
It's everything. It's everything. Okay, so this is my classic dish that I make this is some country shit. I make oatmeal with ice cream because I love super hot oatmeal with really cold ice cream. And when the ice cream starts to melt, it is just so bomb. And you can do any ice cream that you want. So oatmeal ice cream is my specialty.
Wait, so regular ice cream and then like hot instant oatmeal?
A hot instant oatmeal, so hot and cold, and you get both at the same time, and then it's just like melts in your mouth.
I want vanilla ice cream and I want like a shit ton of cinnamon on there.
It's everything. And my mom can only cook 2 things. My mom can cook lasagna and oatmeal. So that was like dinner and that was dessert and then basically breakfast and repeat. We were like a frozen waffle kind of family, but my dad, he is like the takeout king. So he loves takeout food. So that's why we didn't cook very much growing up because my dad just loved going to takeout places. I think mostly because he loved to trap his kids in his truck and make us listen to his new music. Because if we were like on the way to whatever restaurant, we'd have to listen to my dad's new album.
So the Cyrus family was basically frozen waffles and a lot of takeout. But look, you made it out alive.
Exactly, and I'm strong.
There you go. Okay, here's the thing with scrambled eggs. One of my pet peeves is overcooked eggs when they get like really hard. You want them to be nice and runny. The whites are fully cooked through, and that's why whisking them really nicely is super important. Like these are still wet and really nice, and they're good to go. Take them off the heat like 30 seconds to a minute before you think that they're ready, so they stay nice and creamy. The same goes for if you're making a tofu scramble as well.
Awesome.
And then I grab my little tortilla that I heated up on a little pan. I like the corn ones over the flour ones, but if all you have is flour, we're just working with what we got. Leftover beans from last night, smear them on.
Smear.
And then a little bit of special salt from Miss Miley. It's a lot, but it's okay.
This is amazing. I think everyone is going to be so happy to know that you can have whatever you had the night before for breakfast.
I'm literally using 3 dinner meal like leftover components to create this.
That is amazing.
Like, we have to be creative. That's the plus side. I know it's like a horrible, stressful time for so many people, and it's not to be taken lightly, but like creativity can happen in these times. Like, we're stuck here, we might as well make the best of it, you know?
Absolutely. I had some leftover Christmas lights. I had a DJ booth, which I'm still not sure whose DJ booth. I'll actually show you this. I have no idea whose this is. I think it might be my sister, but I hope she doesn't mind that I painted on it and covered it in glitter.
Amazing.
My sister's also older than me, so she will beat my ass as soon as she sees this live. But
I miss my records in New York. You just made me miss my record players.
I all over her DJ
My
booth.
favorite thing to do. Okay, so we have our eggs. They're right here. And then you put a little bit of pico. And then the last component, we're going to cut up a little avocado.
Yum!
Slice it open.
In my
if you
next
cut,
one, I want to come back as an avocado. I think they're everyone's favorite.
they really are. They're creamy and they're delicious.
Yeah. Just
It's perfectly ripe too. You know when it's not fully ripe and you're like, oh shit, I should have let it sit.
I literally look like an avocado right now.
You do. That's a grand compliment, frankly.
It is.
And then just scoop out the whole thing. And now, because I don't have a lot of the spices that I typically do whenever I'm back home in New York, I found this at Trader Joe's. It's like a chili lime seasoning. I've been putting it on fresh mango. It's delicious. And I just put that on the avo. And there you go. You have a cute little meal.
That is super cute, super like easy to do with so many different things. You know, we were talking about all the different leftovers. I love that you incorporated like not just the night before. Don't throw things away. We're not in a time to waste.
No, this is not. I mean, and let this be a lesson for when things are back to normal, whatever the hell that means.
Yeah.
Just to remember to not be wasteful with things, you know, and just be creative with it. Like, there's always a solution for it, and we get to learn from it. Like, we get to be better and stronger. I'm an optimist.
Thank you so much for this morning, everyone. Hope you wrote that down. Totally freestyle. Actually, I'll ask everyone to take pictures of the breakfast that they make once they have the
Nice. I love that.
Send us some photos and I'll send it to Antoni and I'll get pictures from everyone making their own version of your breakfast.
And donate to Feeding America if you can. They're awesome.
Yes, let's do it. Thank you, Antoni. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye. Well, that was awesome. I'm so happy that Antoni, he brings so much light, not just right now, but all the time with Queer Eye. So I'm so happy to have him on the show. So now it is time to talk music with Mark Ronson. So I'm going to put him on in. All right.
Hey.
Mark Ronson.
I've never done this before. How is that sad? This
I'm
is great.
calling your Insta Live cherry.
Hey.
Hey.
Hey, can I tell you a funny story about Tony Antoni? Did you say Anthony or Tony? Or?
Antoni.
Anthony.
But maybe if you guys are homies, he goes by Tony. I'm just not there yet.
No. So I was a big fan of the show when it first came out. Do you know the Big Five?
Yeah.
And I saw him at a party, and it was like one of those parties. Not like I go to them all the time, but like everybody's famous, and you're like looking around, and he's so handsome, and I was like, I couldn't remember. You know, when you see someone famous that you know that you like because they were in something that you like. But you can't remember, and there's so many shows now and all these things you watch. So I just went up to him and I was like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, I know I watch you on TV and I like the thing that you're on a lot, but like, are you on like an HBO show or something? And he's like, do you watch Queer Eye? I was like, oh, that's it. But I totally thought he was just like some actor who's on some show that I like because I forgot.
Well, he's just like so handsome, and he is just always making, I mean, that looks so bomb what he's making. And he's also just radiates just like that star power, you know, like you and me. You know, when you just like walk into a room and everyone's just like magnetized to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's got that personality, so it's really cool what he does, and he helps people all the time, not just in a pandemic.
It's great. I love that show so much. They really like, you know, they transform people's lives. It's such a nice thing. Everybody's crying at the end. I'm crying. So.
I'm always crying.
Yeah, on the plane.
At the end of every episode.
Yeah, yeah.
So thank you for joining the show. You know me, I like to keep my brain, you know, occupied and using this platform that I have to connect, and like whether that's connecting to fans or people that just want some light and optimism in their day. There's been so many people joining every day, and I know they're really excited for today's episode because I think a lot of people are able. I had Amy Schumer on the show a couple days ago, and you know, some people, like when you have that job and you don't have time to really focus on a hobby or a passion. So when you're working your 9 to 5, when you come home, you're exhausted. And even though you have this dream of being a songwriter or being a stand-up comedian, or I had Jeremy Scott of being a designer, usually we're so busy with our 9 to 5 that we don't have time to like really put that love and energy into our passion and into our hobbies. So I think more people that have a dream of being a songwriter will have time to actually kind of like polish up their skills and sharpen their melodies and their lyrics. So I wanted to talk to you about like your journey from the beginning. Like, how would one become a Mark Ronson? I'm asking for a friend.
How would you become a Mark Ronson, whatever that means? I guess it's just, well, the thing is, this is a hard time to be a Mark Ronson because I require like collaborating with incredible people like yourself. And, you know, I write music. I like to come up with arrangements. I like to produce stuff. So this is a different time for me. But I don't know. I guess the main thing is just like, this is a good time to be finding a program that you like to make music on, coming up to composing, coming up with whether it's beats or tracks or chords or songs or whatever you do, because it really is like people are sitting home, people want to listen to music, people want stuff to digest. This is like a great time if you can sit alone and make music by yourself and put it out. There's an audience sitting there waiting for it.
That's really, really good advice. So to try things that you haven't. I think it'll be encouraging to everyone watching that someone like you is still trying to learn, because you should never stop learning. My dad says the dumbest guy in the room is the guy that thinks he's the smartest guy.
Honestly, like, it's so embarrassing, but I've been getting like lessons and tutoring from like Ableton from all these like amazing producers, like these guys, the Bacard brothers. I even had Kevin from Tame Impala showing me how to like do some side chaining, like all these things that I've just kept saying I'm gonna learn it one day, and I've been stubborn. Like, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Definitely happy sitting here learning.
The fans are writing bad karma over and over again. One person just wrote, Mark Ronson, I know you know how to read. Release bad karma.
That's not my song. That's your song.
It's our song.
Okay, but you got the little, you know, the lock and the key on the amazing new Miley. When is new amazing, all this amazing new Miley music that I heard? When is this coming? Am I turning the interview on you for a minute? But when are you going to put out?
Well, my plan was around these summer festivals, and I've never done an American summer tour, like a festival round before. You know, we did the European shows together last year.
Yeah.
Played Glastonbury, and with this music, with Bad Karma, like there is that Joan Jett kind of, you know, element to it that I really wanted to be able to have live at festivals in the summers, which now it looks like a lot of those shows are getting pushed back to fall. So, you know, another wise word from my dad is life is a series of adjustments. So I'm just over here adjusting. And,
yeah, that thing behind you, your head is so cool. I thought it was some app or something.
I made this because we all have a lot of time on our hands. How do you think that social media or YouTube has changed the industry, whether that's for better or for worse?
You know, I'm glad I came up in the era when I did, because I love the sweaty clubs of New York in the, you know, the late 90s and 2000s. But it's amazing. Like, you know, my friend D Nice had a DJ set the other night on Instagram, and I think 100,000 people were there. And you had like, he was shouting out healthcare workers, and you had like Drake signing on all these different people. So I do think that, you know, social media and all that stuff is pretty great, how it joins people up.
I agree. So speaking of like whether it's DJing or producing or writing, when you and I first started working together, it was for Nothing Breaks Like a Heart, and like you kind of already had the track produced, and you always have a reference, or you start somewhere new every time?
I think you start somewhere new every time, and then sometimes you're lucky somebody just comes into the studio with an idea and just like, oh, you know what, I was driving here and I just had this idea for this lyric, and then that's kind of the jump off point. And then honestly, that song probably came about mostly because ever since I saw you sing, you know, that time 4 years ago on the SNL thing, I was like, I just, one day I will make this great song or some demo or a track and just send it, and you'll be like, yeah, I'll be over in 2 hours. And you know, we didn't really know each other, and that's sort of what happened.
It was just a chorus, and I pushed play on my phone, and it was so serendipitous because I was driving towards Malibu, and you were actually out in Malibu working at Shangri-La, and I was like, well, it's like an exit past my house. I'm just going to come straight there. And it was just crazy. It was just so kind of cosmic that worked out. And then me and Ilsey kind of formed this songwriter sisterhood, you know, being in kind of a male dominant industry. Her and I just clicked, and we wrote this piece of you. And it reminded me too that I can have a record that everyone loves and I can love it too. Because sometimes I think in the industry we forget, we feel like there's going to be a part of us that we're going to have to sacrifice to have a hit song. And that song reminded me that that's not true.
No, and also when you and Ilsey just started writing those verses, part of the thing about being a producer is also knowing when to get out the way of talent and something magical happening. So when you and Ilsey just started like throwing lines of the verse back and forth and stuff, I was like, I'm definitely not needed here. And that's the other thing about being a producer, like be there when you need to. You don't have to put your stamp on everything. Just like let two incredibly talented, brilliant people just do their thing. So yeah.
You went and did TM.
I think I did go and do TM. I went and did TM and probably just, I came back 2 hours later and you guys had written the whole song.
It's the most kind of like Mark Ronson thing in the world. We're writing this song and like me and Ilsey are really like fired up on matcha, and we're like going back really fast like crazy people, and you just go, I'm gonna go meditate.
Yeah.
Ooh, I wanted to ask this. So when you were growing up, what artist made you go, I have to be a musician? What were you listening to? And is it something that we can find that you can recommend? We have time to listen to a lot of music.
When I was like 7, 8, 9, 10, I loved Duran Duran and then Guns N' Roses. And then I got really into hip hop because I was living in New York at that point. I moved there when I was 8 with my mom. And so I loved, I don't know, like De La Soul and the Beastie Boys and Public Enemy, and probably DJ Premier from Gang Starr was the person that really I wanted to be the, like, he was the beat maker that I just loved the sound of his stuff so much, you know. So I would say those guys, and then obviously people like Quincy Jones and you know, Stevie Wonder and Steely Dan, all sorts of stuff.
All things that everyone can find now. They can go to YouTube, they can go to Spotify, they can go find these things that have been so inspiring to you, because I get to do this a lot, which I love, because you can take songs that maybe some of my fans, younger generation, wouldn't recognize and give them a rebirth, give them a new life. It's actually really funny when you Google Jolene, it comes up that it's a Miley Cyrus song, which is absolutely not accurate. But for this generation, it is. That's how they got introduced to the song. So it's just cool when an artist, you know, of the now can take a record from then and give it new life, and also just talk to these kids. So many of my fans are younger and wouldn't know some of the artists you just mentioned. So do your research, because, you know, the past is what makes all the great ingredients from what we grew up listening to.
Every now and then I'll discover some cover that you did of like Crowded House, Don't Dream It's Over. I'd be like, God, how does she even know that song? I forget you're just such an encyclopedia of music. The way you interpret songs is really, I told you this before, but not only are you one of my favorite singers alive, but just the way that you already know what you're going to sound good singing before you even probably comes out of your mouth. You just sing, you just own it. It's so great.
I say that's from my dad. My dad had this truck. I was just telling Antoni that my dad loves takeout food, but the only reason he likes takeout is that means he'll be able to trap his children in his truck so he can play his records that he likes over and over again, but usually they're his own records. Yeah. So my dad's the king of covers also, so he'll be like, I want to play you this great song by Johnny Cash. The only twist is I'm singing it. And you're like, oh, so it's not a Johnny Cash song. I'm listening to another one of your records. Right. So that's my dad's favorite thing, is to listen to his own music. So I want to talk, obviously we talked about us working together. It was just, we clicked from the very first day in our studio, and then that became a bond that, you know, have taken us from my last record drop, you know, songs like The Most, which is one of my favorite songs on the record. Yeah, love it. And then records that we have on my next album, TBD on the date.
All I can see is like just your fans, just because they know they know one of the names of the song, so it's just like bah, 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 like all the streaming comments at the bottom.
I love that you always let me kind of like let my Dolly Parton, you know, influence come through, but then we go in there with like Stevie Nicks and little Joplin, you know, seasoning, and we also put in Joan Jett inspiration on this record coming up. It's just the best. So I can't wait for everyone to hear.
I can't wait.
Next album.
I cannot wait.
Before we sign off, I was wondering if we should do a chorus of Nothing Breaks Like a Heart. It's kind of makes a lot of sense with what's going on right now in the world.
Have you managed to jam? Like, will we be playing at the same time? Will it work?
Yeah.
Should we try?
I haven't jammed.
Okay, tell me if you hear this.
Nothing breaks like ours. Yeah. Thank you, Ronson. Thank you for being on Bright Minded.
Thanks so much for having. Thanks for keeping us all entertained and bright-minded and happy.
I hope
be
to
safe.
See you soon in the yo.
See you soon.
Bye. Okay, so now I want to introduce songwriter, producer, frontman, badass philanthropist, Ryan Tedder. Yes! I want to talk to you about how you've been staying bright in dark times, because your lives and your attitude during the crisis has just been as inspirational as, you know, your songwriting. So what have you been doing just to mentally stay in, you know, light and illuminated?
Well, when we got back to the States almost 2 weeks ago today, I'll make it a very short story. We were doing a miniature, what you'll understand as an underplay tour, right? You do 6 or 7 small venues to set up for your arena tour that comes months and months later. We had to cancel Milan because they closed the border on us as we were headed to Italy. But we couldn't really get a sense of how crazy this thing was. Then we got to London. We played it. I wasn't quite taking it seriously yet because I just was kind of detached and on tour. And then as I'm landing at LAX, a good friend of mine who I had spent the entire previous night with, dinner, we shared pizza, we shared food, drinks, hung out. He was in the hospital. So he texted me from the hospital. He's like, mate, I'm so sorry, but you need to go straight to a doctor. You need to get tested. I have coronavirus and it sucks. I'm in the hospital. And then my publicist who was with me all day, she came down with it. So I called my doctor and he said, go straight to your studio. Don't go home. Don't see your kids. Don't see your wife. Go home. So the first 3 days, I was kind of emotional because I'd been away from my family for 2 weeks. And then like the third day, I snapped and was like, you know what? Screw this. Let's do live concerts every night for free. Let's do a cooking show. I'm going to start quarantine cuisining every single night. I love to cook. And let's just connect. Let's connect with the rest of the world. And I swear to God, that interactivity has kept my sanity. It's just like making music and reaching out, just what you're doing. This is what has kept me sane.
Yeah, we were talking yesterday. I was doing something with Instagram, and this quote from Willie Nelson, he said, the minute I counted my blessings, my whole life turned around. So the minute that you kind of start looking at what you have, which, you know, I am definitely not oblivious to, our situation is, you know, very unique, and a lot of people have a lot more struggles and stress around this time than I do. But if I can bring some peace and, you know, brightness, and not necessarily even optimism or don't worry, be happy. Because on the show, I talk about worry is a necessity to allow us to do what we need to do. You know, worry keeps us washing our hands because you're worried about keeping your wife and kids safe. Worry is very healthy, but if we can push pause on anxiety and worry for an hour and just have a good time and think about songwriting, maybe you could convert that worry and anxiety into a song, which we do all the time.
100%. I think that what you do with because we all feel it, and I don't know about you, but like I have days where I go the whole day and I don't even think about what's going on really, and then I'll have a day like yesterday watching the governor and the mayor having a conversation and telling us it's going to be 2 more months. I had a moment yesterday. I had a freak out yesterday for like an hour where I literally was like kind of doing one of these things like, oh my God, 2 months. Wait, what? Like, and then I just kind of chilled and I was like, wait a minute. I'm not being asked to go to war. We're not being asked, like you've seen all the memes. Everybody's gone meme crazy for the last 2 weeks. But all the quotes about like our grandparents got asked to go like sacrifice their lives and do all these things. We're being asked to stay indoors, watch Netflix, get on Instagram, talk with each other, and interact in new and unique ways. I use you as an example. How do you provide levity? Like, we're not saying it's all okay, don't worry about anything. What we're providing is levity, and we're providing humor, and music to me is the most cathartic thing in the world. And that's what you do, that's what I do. In songwriting, the amount of songs that are going to come from this experience, I think it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, I agree. You know, someone said to me one time, like, don't worry, it's going to happen. And I said, it's not going to happen. I'm going to make it happen by my choices. So the more, even though it seems crazy, the more you stay home, the quicker you will get back to life as we know it. The more that you make these sacrifices, you'll get rewarded in return. The more that we act irresponsibly or not being considerate towards others, it will just make this process take even longer. We're in a unique position where we do have to worry less because not much in my life is going to change, but a lot will change in other people's lives. So if we can bring an hour of, you know how you said some days you don't think about it all, if we could bring an hour of that, of just pushing pause on the worry, I would feel like my job is done. And that's what songwriting does, not just in pandemics and not just in crisis, but in heartbreak, when you lose a family member, or when you fall in love for the first time, or you go on, you know, you get kissed. Like, music narrates our life and narrates our story. And so
it's
we
the
use
soundtrack.
music to heal all the time.
I got into music because I used it so exclusively as the soundtrack to my life throughout childhood, from the first cassette tape I had, which was the Beach Boys' Greatest Hits, through the MC Hammer and Terribly Dressed scene of the early 90s, through the hard rock and heavy metal, and on into now, and working with artists like you. Music is my catharsis. I didn't get into music to make money. Music did so much for me as a child and as a adolescent and as a young adult. It was my soundtrack to the good times and the bad times. I wanted to create that feeling for other people. And it's really that simple. And every time I get together with songwriters, probably once a session, I look around and I go, can you believe this is our freaking job? You
did it with me, which, by the way, we just totally spilled the tea that you and I are working together. I see all my fans freaking out. They'll hear the music soon. So when you're saying, like, from the beginning of your career, you were just trying to make a living, that actually probably would have been tougher because it would have been more based on, like, physicals and how do you get money to, like, print the album and how do you get money to act. Okay, so it would have been very expensive. It actually is much more simpler to turn your music into making a living, or is it harder, or what's the deal?
The answer is a bit of both. When I started in 2003-4 pursuing a music career, it was all about, we got to get a record deal. I want to sign with Columbia Records or Interscope, because that was like a brand, that was the first stage stamp of approval, right? Now we make the album, now we have a hit. If you look at out of the 20 songs in the world right now, the top 20 globally on Spotify, 8 of them are brand new artists that broke off TikTok that had no previous records. And now I'm not saying that everybody should try and game TikTok to have hits. The point I'm making is you had people that I worked on Lil Nas X's EP. Right after I was with him the day that Old Town Road hit #1. Like, he walked into my door and got a text from Ron Perry, "You're #1, congrats." And it was crazy. He was eating pizza on his sister's couch 9 months before that, or no, 6 months before that. So it is easier to get into music now because anybody can do it. And you can monetize it. I signed an artist named Cautious Clay. Shout out Cautious Clay. Anybody's listened to Cold War, which is kind of his ubiquitous song. He has no record deal. He lives in an apartment in Brooklyn, and the guy is crushing it. And he gets no radio, and he does so well. That's the easy part. Anybody can get into it. It's good. The hard part is you are now competing with the world. So it used to be those barriers to entry, like record deals, all that stuff. It limited the amount. It made it an exclusive club. So if you signed to Hollywood Records like you did, or I was on Interscope or Columbia, it meant I was only competing with other signed artists. Now you're competing with the entire world. So it's easier, but there's a lot more music out there to compete with. So it's kind of both.
Right. So what about when you have like, a viral song, turning that into a career seems like that would also be the struggle because like you said, you don't want to just encourage TikTok artists as well because you want to be able to sustain yourself and sustain your career. So that seems like that would be a big challenge.
That's the hardest part. And what I would say to anybody that's starting, if you end up with an accidental hit, which,
I love those.
you know, right? They're amazing. But like, if you think about like, Dance Monkey, right? Nobody saw that coming. If you think about Roddy Ricch, The Box, which is now a TikTok song that exploded, the hardest thing to do is follow that up. The hard thing about music today, there's a lot of one-hit wonders. There's more one-hit wonders now than in the history of recorded music because these people didn't plan on having a music career.
Right.
So yeah, if you're gonna get into music and this is what you want to do, just make sure you've got other songs. Make sure you got more than just one.
Right. Now that we're talking about kind of accidental hits, because you were talking about, okay, so you got quarantined, you had to finish your record in quarantine.
Yeah.
You came out with the song, and then, wait, so what happened? Because you were telling me all of a sudden now it's on like every TV commercial ever.
All right, I've never experienced anything like this in my life, and we as a band have been a very licensed band for TV commercials and movies and stuff, so I'm used to that. I've never had anything happen like in the last 4 days. I posted a song. We were finishing our album. The 5th One Republic album was due. What is today? It's due today. Our deadline's today. Mixed, mastered, you name it. So it happened to land in the middle of quarantine. We dropped a new single called Didn't I, which is thankfully doing really, really well. But we dropped it on the Friday. It came out last Friday morning. 3 hours later, the World Health Organization announced a global pandemic. So it was kind of like a tree falling in the forest. You're like, well, there goes that. Let's see what happens. And a lot of artists feel that way right now about dropping new music during this time. One of the songs on the album was called Better Days. The entire chorus already existed. I ended up writing the lyrics 5 days ago, while in quarantine. All I could write about is what's happening and how weird LA feels and how weird the world feels. But I didn't want it to be depressing. So we made it as like this glimmer of hope record, like Good Life or something, like some of the other songs that we've done. I posted it on Instagram. The CEO of Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, whatever, like 20 car companies, called me. We just heard the song. We want to use it for our entire campaign. Nobody's really selling cars right now. We want to change our whole strategy for the next 3 months. We've already bought the ads. It's going to be everywhere starting Tuesday night. That was on Saturday. We finished the record. The commercial started. I did a live stream last night, and half my stream was, oh my God, your song is on this commercial. And we are now donating. We decided, you know what, let's partner with Spotify and Music Cares. Let's donate proceeds from the streams, the revenue from this song directly to Music Cares because the music industry just got hammered with coronavirus. So many people have been laid off. 90% of everybody's crew has been laid off and they don't have a plan B.
Right.
Because you can't go work at a restaurant. You can't go get some other side gigs. So they're literally, how am I going to pay my bills? Music Cares is a charity that pays for people that have been affected right now by COVID-19. So creators, songwriters, musicians, there's a huge fund, and Music Cares is trying to take care of our people. And so we want this song to generate money and to give it to people that need it.
I think there's two parts of music. There's the music industry, and then there's the music community, which I feel like you and I are a part of. It's about you and me and Ali Timposi and getting on the couch and like me just spilling my guts of what my last 2 years have been like. And it's very intimate. And so everything does have to stop in this time for everyone's safety so we can keep making great music. But it is challenging because there's no time like right now that you want to write a fucking song. I've never wanted to get in the room more.
I got a text from Niall. I got a text from Jason Evigan, from Watt, from like, you name it, just saying, yo, when can we get virtual writing sessions going? Can we do this? Like everybody's tours are getting blown out and canceled. So now is the time to write songs.
Well, count me in because I'm in there. And now we can do it on Zoom or whatever so we can have the whole freaking crew in there.
Exactly.
I'm really excited for everyone to hear the music that we've made. And the last question was, who's your favorite artist that you've ever worked with?
My favorite artist besides you?
Mullet?
I mean, Miley Cyrus, I actually did tell my manager the other day, I said, when we wrapped some of those sessions, I was like, those were some of the most effortless, funnest sessions I've ever had. It was like, you just get into a rhythm. You get into a rhythm. If I have a phenomenal experience, I put it in my top 3 because I can never say what's number 1 or 2. So you'd be in my top 3, and I'm not just blowing smoke. My number 1 of all time is Paul McCartney.
That's sick.
I produced and co-wrote on his most recent album that came out last year. I flew to England. I got to play with all the Beatles instruments. He told me how is Blackbird written? How is Hey Jude written? How is like all the Yesterday? How did you come up with Eleanor Rigby? And he told me all the stories. Anytime you ask him a question, he just tells you, oh man, that's a cool story, man. Let me tell you, that, I remember. And he tells you the whole thing. And then he came to my studio here in LA and we finished it, and the rest is history. So yeah, Paul McCartney.
That is the best number 1 you could have. That's so sick. Ryan, everyone should follow Ryan on Instagram because your cooking is like, I didn't know that. Why have you not been bringing snacks to the studio?
Watt is always eating at the strangest times, and Allie. Everybody has weird food allergies and stuff. I don't want to mess with
snacks. Your new song's awesome. I love what you're doing with like everything just philanthropically too. You're just the man. So I can't wait till we're back in the studio. Thanks for going live with me on Bright Minded.
Thanks so much for having me.
Tell your family that I love them and I'm thinking about you guys.
Will do. Ditto.
Right.
Peace.
Bye, Ryan.
Be good. See you guys.
All right. Okay, and so now another very special guest, someone very close to me and to my heart, is Ilsey, who I am so happy to have on the show. We've written songs like Nothing Breaks Like a Heart together, The Most, Dream. We've written a ton of songs together, so I'm excited for y'all to get to meet Ilsey Juber. So she's one of my favorite writers to write with, so I'm going to add her in right now. Hi, Ilsey.
Hey, can you hear me?
HQ, high quality queen. Well, I want to start with Ilsey is one of my favorite writers to work with because it mostly just becomes a therapy session. We laugh, we cry, we never know if we're going to write a song about our hoo-ha or heartbreak. We've written about everything.
Pretty
so
much.
I'm so happy to have you on the show. And I wanted to ask, when did you know that being a songwriter was just it for you? Was there any other option? I could not imagine you being anything but a songwriter.
Well, the first thing I was going to be was a drummer. Actually, no, the first thing I was going to be was a baseball player. And that was when that was when I was 11.
You wanted to be Johnny Bench?
Yeah, I mean, my first passion was drums, actually. So that was when I was like 11. And that was because of Zach Hansen. I was obsessed with Hansen.
Oh, duh.
Yeah, obviously. And then when I was about 15, I started writing songs, and that was like it for me.
Did you ever write songs like on the drums? That seems, I guess,
well,
now, though, that kind of makes sense because people make beats and then write songs to beats. Like, how did you write?
Well, I tried to write songs on drums, but it was kind of difficult, which is why I started playing guitar.
Right, because you're all ooh, ooh, ta ta.
Well, what I used to do was I put headphones on, like giant headphones, and I would play the drums, and I would play along to like Third Eye Blind.
Yeah.
And Dave Matthews Band, and I would try to sing along at the same time, and it wasn't so easy.
Now that you're talking about Third Eye Blind, Hanson, Dave Matthews, I'm starting to understand you more and more.
Yeah.
Speaking of like Third Eye Blind and Hanson, we live in a male-dominant music industry. How do you think that your experience has been different by being a female in the music industry?
I mean, I think that just inherently being female, it's going to be different because I come from a female perspective. I think when you're the only girl in the room, you sort of have to fight for your place a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And when I walk into a room, a lot of times people assume that I'm a top liner, which is a word that's thrown around a lot for like female songwriters.
So what does that mean? What does a top liner mean?
Well, a top liner is somebody that they refer to as somebody who writes like on top of a beat, on top of a track or something like that. And for somebody who plays instruments and somebody who, you know, makes music and is a full songwriter, I don't consider myself a top liner. And I
did not even know what the hell that meant when somebody told me so was a great top liner. I was like, that's great. I'm a top too. So people wouldn't really know, assuming that you're like a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah, I think that people just assume that, you know, that I'm kind of one note and that I only do one thing. And you sort of have to prove yourself. I think that's really what it is as a female, there's a little more of having to prove yourself as opposed to being the benefit of the doubt, you know?
Right, because I feel that a lot too, because I'm a female and I like to wear, you know, shiny, metallic, crystallized things, which so did David Bowie, so does Jagger, so do all these guys, and they're considered rock stars. You know, sometimes I want to be in like my sneakers like I am today and sweatpants, but some days I do want to put on my like platform shoes. And when Bowie does it, it's considered rock and roll. But if I do it, then I'm a pop star. So I think the labels are, again, that's just like our enemy. I think in life in general, just labels just get in the way.
Yeah, and I think that there's something also to the fact that, like, you know, I'm not the most feminine female. You know, I don't wear dresses, I don't wear a lot of makeup, like, and I think maybe because of that, it's been a little bit easier for me, in terms of like not being too threatening in a room
Right.
with men. But I don't think that that's a good thing. I think that I
Well,
should be able to be whatever I want.
that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple of our other female writing friends that said when they go in to write with other females, they assume that you want to be an artist and that you two are competing.
Right.
Like to me, I have to be in my element, in my style to write music. And that's unfair if you have to come in playing yourself down because men are going to be distracted by your sexuality or women are going to feel competitive towards you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a microcosm of how women are treated in the world in general. You know, it's not like different from any other industry. It's just happens to be the music industry.
I agree. And that's crazy that you started talking about like whether you feel feminine or how you kind of like, how you kind of carry yourself. Because I like to wear things that are expressive the same way that I would write songs. I want my insides to be outside by what I wear.
I just want to be comfortable, and I want to be able to feel like I'm in my most natural state of being, because I think that that's the only way that I can write a song, is if I'm trying to be something that I'm not, or if I'm trying to put on some kind of mask, then I can't be in touch with the thing that makes me a good songwriter. And, you know, I try, I don't know, I don't like to generalize in terms of like what men are going to think or not think, or women are going to think or not think, because I think that everybody's different. I think that the thing that I've tried to find within myself is just a sense of authenticity. And I know, you know, you have too. We've talked a lot about that, where the more authentic you are to yourself in terms of musically, stylistically, as a person, the more true your art can be.
I mean, I can't even write songs with makeup on because I can't move my face. The minute that I have makeup on, I'm like trying to sing, and it's like, oh, could you hit like that on like the E, or could you do an ooh? And I'm like, I would love to, but I can't move my face because I caked it on today.
But that's a perfect metaphor, though. It's like if you wear a mask, you can't express yourself.
That's exactly it. And also, we spend long hours in the studio. We get there in the morning and leave in the morning sometimes.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to be like comfy and creative. And like you and I will lay on the floor. We lay on the couch. I want to feel like I can just float and like be free and like not be constricted. I know your process because I've shared studio time with you, but it's different every time that we write. Like, I don't think that you have a formula. You and I usually book out, 2 weeks or something, so we don't have that demand of you have to leave the studio with the song, because I can't write like that. Is there a formula or an ingredient besides matcha?
Besides matcha, oh man.
Matcha? We do intravenous matcha at some point.
Basically, the only secret ingredient that I could ever say is just like truth and honesty. Like, the more you can get to some sense of like what you're actually feeling, what's real to you and what's true to you, the quicker you can get to that, the more easily you can write something. When you and I have conversations, so much of the time we'll just be talking, and then one of us will be like, oh my God, that's a great song title, or that's a great lyric. Because it always comes from just what you're really feeling, what you're really going through. And I think that the more you can be in touch with like what is actually going on in your life and what you're actually feeling. So I think that that's where the special sauce comes in. At the end of the day, it just comes from your experience and your truth.
Okay, this is actually crazy. You and I weren't even as close yet. And we ended up starting a second song that night when we finished Nothing Breaks. I think the verses started getting like, okay, now we're getting too far from the chorus, but let's make sure we keep that. Yeah. Because that's another song also. So like the way me and Ilsey kind of write, you know, for people watching, it's like, I was telling you, you know, I remember one night we were super drunk in Tennessee and he told me this, and you're like, you were drunk in London, Tennessee?
Yeah.
A great songwriter is really a great listener because you just listen and translate.
People have this idea that you can't be too specific in a song because then it won't be relatable to people. But a lot of times, the more specific you are, the more relatable it'll be because then people will relate it to something specific in their own lives.
I totally, totally agree. For my last question I have for you is I wanted to know, were there any super impactful, can be women, but also just like artists in general besides Third Eye Blind, that was super impactful on your career? What would you recommend for everyone to listen to right now?
I mean, in terms of the most impactful people in my life would probably be my parents just early on.
Your dad obviously was a musician. You kind of grew up in the music and actually just like the industry in general.
Yeah. So my grandfather was a television creator, producer, and made awesome TV shows, Brady Bunch, Gilligan, stuff like that. And
boom, things like that.
He was the very first songwriter in my family because he did like the theme songs and stuff. But my mom was actually in like a comedy rock and roll band the whole time I was growing up.
So am I. That's my aesthetic. I would say
comedy rock and roll.
Yeah, I'm a comedy rock and roll solo artist, but same thing.
My parents were just so passionate about music. My dad's a fingerstyle acoustic guitar player. He played in Wings with Paul McCartney in the 70s, and now he's like an incredible fingerstyle guitar player. And, you know, they were so passionate about music, and we would drive around listening to, like, you know, the Beatles, the Eagles, Fleetwood Mac, Simon and Garfunkel, just like the classics. And when I started listening to music on my own, you know, you and I bonded over like Beth Hart as like an amazing female singer-songwriter.
It's kind of probably most of these fans actually only maybe know Beth Hart because I cover her cover of I'll Take Care of You. And I've always credited Beth Hart to that song because it's funny. I was talking to Tedder about this, and Ronson, how you can, some artists of the newer generation, you can take a classic old song and make it your own so much that like even Prince would write records for other artists and no one would even know that Prince is the writer.
Yeah.
You know, so you can actually
like nothing compares to you.
Yeah, for Sinead O'Connor. So these songs you can take and cover and make them your own even if you don't write them.
Now is the time to really explore all the parts of yourself that like you've always wanted to. You know, there's that saying like necessity is the mother of all invention. When you're forced to sort of do things in a different way, amazing things can come out of it. And we're seeing that right now with like, you know, hospitals being forced to figure out how to use ventilators in a new way, and people making all these masks. You make vaccines when a new virus comes around because you have to. You know, even for myself right now, I'm like teaching myself how to use Pro Tools because I can't go into the studio with anybody. So I'm like, well, I guess I have to learn how to record myself. And now is the time for people to be making those covers that they've always wanted to make and teaching themselves the instruments they've always wanted to learn. And it's a really difficult time for people, but it can also be a really creative time. And, you know, we're stuck, so you got to make the most of it, I think.
I agree. Ilsey, you were like so awesome. I think so many people, I can see everyone writing just how inspired they are. Oh yeah, can we show the real stars? Hi, baby. Oh my goodness. Hold on, I have to introduce you to your cousin. Come here. Come here. Actually, this new puppy is because of Ilsey. Oh.
Moose, say hi to Bo.
When we're allowed, we'll have a puppy play date very soon. Can you believe this right now?
Unbelievable. The fact that I can't
mood.
The fact that I can't give him a kiss is very, very frustrating to me.
I wish someone would hold me like this, but that would not be keeping my 3 to 6 feet. So thank you, Ilsey, for being on the show, and thank you for encouraging me to get another puppy.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Dogs. Bye. Okay, that was a great show. One of my favorites, getting to talk about music and songwriting. That was my puppy. I want everyone to tune in tomorrow. It is going to be an episode where we celebrate LGBTQ history. I'll have queer historian Matthew Reamer, celebrity photographer Vijay Mohindra, Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton, and Michelle Visage from RuPaul's Drag Race. I'm sure you saw on my Insta stories, but these cases, Hannah Montana inspired from Urban Sophistication. If you go to their website and you use Happy Hippie as the code and check out, you'll be able to have the profits go towards Happy Hippie for Feeding America. So they're super cool. I have one on my phone right now. Don't forget about To Write Love. Here's the crisis text line.